Okay, so welcome back to another video on this channel. First of all, we will address, of course, the elephant in the room, which, of course, the lockdown trim. It's finally ceased to exist. It no longer exists, thank God, because to be honest, it was really getting annoying. But nevertheless, I don't think any of you care about my stupid trim, to be honest. We're going to get in with this video now, which is, of course, how will the Championship promoted teams actually fare in the Premier League next season? Of course, Norwich City, Watford Football Club, and of course, Brentford Football Club playing their first ever season in the Premiership. How will those three teams do next season? That is exactly what we're going to be looking at in this video. So yeah, without further ado, let's get straight into this video now. So first of all, we're going to have a look at Norwich City now. Obviously, I think I've said that multiple times on this channel. My brother is, of course, a Norwich fan, for those of you who do not know that. And yeah, therefore, I have had the, the fortunate scenario of watching a lot of their games last season in the Championship. And my word, they came back up with absolute, absolute style, to be honest with you. Obviously, in 2018-19, they got promoted to the Premier League. Then, of course, after one season, went straight back down and were absolutely horrendous, especially defensively. They just couldn't, stop conceding goals, to be honest. And then last season, they really came up, as I said, in just absolute style. I think of that game against Huddersfield I watched with my brother, the 7-0 against Huddersfield. It was absolutely unbelievable. Every single goal scored in that game was just a wow goal, to be perfectly honest with you. Buendia, Cantwell, Pukki, those kind of players, absolutely clicking to perfection. Even Kieran Dowell as well in midfield. And yeah, the style of football, once again, like they tried to do in the Premier League when they did come up the first time, it was just high pressing, creative football, and just trying to pass the ball really well on the ground, to be honest. It was absolutely scintillating stuff from Norwich next season, or last season I should say. But yeah, next season, will they be able to do what they couldn't do in the 2019-20 season? Obviously, there's no question marks here. They won't change the style of play whatsoever. They will try and persist with the high pressing and energetic, passing style of play that Daniel Farke does like to utilise. And to be honest, I think Norwich could actually shock quite a lot of people, because obviously Norwich City in the last few years especially have had this reputation of being somewhat of a yo-yo club, because they come up and then they go straight back down and then come up again and then go straight back down again. But I think Norwich will actually stay up this time. I know obviously there's a lot of question marks over the future of Emi Buendia, who of course is their, marquee player at this moment in time. Has the most, I think, chances created out of any player in Europe, which is just absolutely unheard of for a Championship player. Obviously looks like he's going to go to Arsenal or Aston Villa in the near future. But even still, I think if he does leave, I don't even think it would be that much of a bad thing. Now, obviously they're missing, massive, they're pretty much best player. I think it's unarguable that he's their best player, which obviously would, massively dent them. But I think, Norwich, especially if you look at Norwich in the last few years, in 17-18, Norwich finished in mid-table, and James Maddison absolutely carried Norwich that season. The year Maddison goes to Leicester, Norwich storm the way through the Championship and win the league. And I'm not saying that Norwich are going to go on and, get European football after selling Buendia, because that probably will not happen. But I'm just saying, maybe it would actually be beneficial to them if they weren't so reliant on one single player and actually grouped together and played a good brand of football, with a team of, equal players, to be honest. But, yeah, obviously they would want to keep Buendia. I'm not by any stretch of imagination saying that they should sell Buendia, because obviously if they could keep him, that would be unbelievable for them. And obviously the recruitment this season is really key for Norwich. As I said multiple times on this channel in Norwich's videos, I think if they are to stay up this season, they have to get the recruitment right. The last time they came up, they, tried to bank on a few loan deals like Amadou and Farman and even Dermot, who came in a free transfer, who just didn't work out whatsoever. They only spent £1 million on one player, and that was Sam Byram from Nottingham Forest. Obviously they've spent a lot more than that already so far with the permanent deals for Giannoulis and of course Ben Gibson arriving from Burnley, and I think they will spend a lot more money. I think they'll probably add 3 or 4 more additions, and yeah, I think that if they do get the recruitment right, there is absolutely no reason whatsoever why Norwich could not stay up in the Premier League this season. Another thing I think as well that is really important to note with Norwich is the fact that they have now, all their players have a year's experience. They know what the Premier League is like. They know how tough it is. Cantwell and Pukki and Krul, Kenny McLean and those kind of players. They all know now they've got a year of experience in the Premier League and back down in the Championship once again to rebuild them mentally and physically. They know how the Premier League is now and they know how to adjust to it, and I think they will get it right this season. And to be honest, maybe a bold prediction, but I think Norwich, I think they'll probably still be in a relegation battle for most of the season, but I do have faith in Norwich to survive, and I'm not just saying that because I have a soft spot for them. I genuinely do think that Norwich will do very well in the Premier League next season, but of course, whether that happens or not, time will of course tell. And now we move on to Watford, of course, who, like Norwich, are rebounding to the Premier League at the first time of asking, but in of course a different scenario for Watford, because Norwich of course were relegated after just being promoted for the first time of asking. Watford of course have been in the Premier League since 2015-16 and only of course got relegated last season. They still remained a bit of their squad, Ismaila Sarr and Ben Foster and Christian Cabasele and those kind of players. They kept them in the Championship, and obviously they've gone straight back up as well. Had the best defensive record in the Championship, only conceded 30 goals overall under Xisco Munoz, who of course has done really well in terms of, you know, bringing a spirit and a fighting mentality to this Watford team, because overall they kind of struggled a little bit towards the start of the season. Vladimir Ivic, who did lose his job around Christmas time as well, and Xisco Munoz has come on to the scene for now at Watford and actually, you know, rebuilded this squad, given it spirit as I said, and just, you know, picked up the mentality in the dressing room and really got Watford over the line in some brilliant fashion, to be honest. I think they are a little bit underdogs in terms of the Premier League next season. To be honest, I'm going to say it, even though Watford do have a very good squad, as I said, with players like Sarr and Foster and Kabasele and Will Hughes and those kind of players, I think Watford, out of the three teams I've mentioned in Norwich, Watford and Brentford, I think they're probably the most likely to be relegated, and obviously I could very much be wrong because they have that Premier League experience. As I said, those players, most of the squad have experienced Premier League football before. They've already made their first signing as well in Imran Louza, who is a midfielder who's come in from FC Nantes in France and actually had a really good season in terms of goals and assists and overall contributions to Nantes last season in the French league. I think that's a position they really need strengthening because of course they had Chalobah, Cleverley, Will Hughes, so they probably wanted to add a little bit more quality, and Louza of course is a very young player as well, so a really good signing for Watford, so promising signs early on. They will sign a few more players, I'd say, like Norwich, probably 3 or 4 more players as well. And yeah, I think overall with that experience and you know, the defensive solidity they showed last season, obviously it's a different animal in the Premier League, especially when you're playing teams like Liverpool, City, Chelsea, those kind of teams week in, week out. But I think if Watford were to kind of retain that, you know, defensive record last season that they did maintain, I think Watford have every chance, like Norwich, to stay up in the Premier League next season, especially, as I said, with the fact that, you know, they have been in the Premier League for the last few years. They know what it takes to stay up in this division on a consistent basis. However, in saying that, in my personal opinion, I think Watford will be the one promoted team overall that will be unlucky and will, you know, go down next season. I think it's, you know, obviously a lot to be said about the other teams that go down. I do also think that Xisco Munoz, of course, their manager, will be sacked before Christmas. I think that's pretty evident no matter how well he's doing. Unfortunately, that's just the culture at Watford. But yeah, obviously, as you said for Norwich, who knows, Watford could easily, you know, turn around and just survive relegation comfortably. But yeah, of course, as I said for Norwich, only time will, of course, tell. And now we move on to the final promoted team, and that is, of course, the playoff winners, 2-0 over Swansea last weekend, and that is, of course, Brentford Football Club. Their first season in the Premier League under Thomas Frank, and in my personal opinion, I think will actually, you know, straight off the bat, I think they will shock a lot of people next season. I think Brentford will be that team that finishes the highest out of all the promoted teams. It wouldn't surprise me whatsoever if they finished in and around mid-table, like 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th, those kind of positions. They'll be a breath of fresh air to the Premier League. They scored the most goals in the Championship last season in the whole division with 79 goals, and of course that was mainly down to the fact that Ivan Toney bagged 31, which is just absolutely unbelievable. I think Ivan Toney is going to be that striker that everyone has at the start of the Fantasy Premier League season. And of course they are an incredibly run club as well. They do utilise the Moneyball system, which means they will, you know, recruit very, very well. Unlike Norwich and Watford, I think they probably will only add, like, you know, 2 or 3 players. I don't think they need that many additions, to be honest, Brentford, because they've got a very good squad. Ivan Toney, Brian Mbeumo, Josh Da Silva, Pontus Jansson, Rico Henry, David Raya, just to name a few, you know, quality players for Brentford. Mathis Jensen and Vitaly Janelt in midfield as well. Very solid midfield for them. And to be perfectly honest with you, I think that Brentford are now here to stay. I think they'll replicate the likes of, you know, Brighton and those kind of teams, Crystal Palace a few years ago, who come up and just, you know, really upset the apple cart and just, you know, stay up for a number of years. I really do believe in this Brentford style of play. I really do believe in this Brentford project because, as I said, of course, they're a really run club financially as well. They'll bring in the right players when they need it, and I think that Brentford will play some very good football next season. And yeah, just to summarise, I think that Brentford, I'm really happy to see them come up, especially with the fact that Norwich and Watford, of course, to some extent, you know, boring for a neutral fan's perspective because, of course, the two clubs that have just, you know, come straight back up from going back down. It's good to have a breath of fresh air like Brentford in the Premier League, and I think they will do very well next season. But of course, as I keep saying, only time will tell. And yeah, so that will bring us to the end of this video. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to drop a like. It means more than you guys could ever imagine. And also, if you want to subscribe to the channel as well, completely your choice. But we are looking to hit 1.7k subscribers on this channel as soon as you possibly can, and your subscriptions would be absolutely hugely appreciated. Leave some comments down in the comment section below on your opinions on Norwich, Watford, and of course Brentford, the 3 promoted teams, and how you would think they will fare next season in the Premier League, because of course my opinion matters, but so does yours. And yeah, make sure to let me know down in the comment section below as well. And yeah, thanks very much for watching this video, guys, and I'll see you guys later. So yeah, see ya.